Time is X minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
It's the Rocket Hour. Y'all are now tuned in. Time to hit the pick four that you'd love to win. If your money's coming slow, step on the faster track with your host, Ricky Pasternak. Let's go.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Rocket Hour, episode 69. But I don't have Aaron Halterman today. He's actually on his way to Long Island, to Belmont, New York right now. I have Danonymous Dan himself from ABR. Dan, good morning. Thank you for coming on. I know you're busy. I'm happy I'm able to catch you this week. I know you're all over the place dealing with stuff. How you doing?
I'm good. I just took my second big glass of iced coffee. I'm raring to go. I got to wake up. This has been already an exhausting week, given the prep for Saturday and tomorrow, really. And then, of course, all the other news that we got hit with yesterday. So, just trying to get myself motivated to stay focused.
Yeah, we're about 48 and a half hours, I think, till post time on Saturday morning. I think 11:30 start. So, it's a good segue, though. I think we have 17. I tweeted it out this morning. 17 stakes races between today and Saturday, which is absolutely fantastic. So if you're interested in getting into the action beforehand, unfortunately, we might be off the turf as I look outside. But it's still great stakes action today. I believe 5 or 6 tomorrow, and then a whole packed card on Saturday as well, which we're going to dive into. But before you came on, I unfortunately had to tell you that we got to talk about this split sample that came back yesterday. This is on racingdudes.com, but it's all over horse racing world. Twitter. It was on, I think Bob Baffer was on CNN yesterday, basically just confirming the split sample. Basically, if you didn't get a chance to listen to us yesterday, more or less, it's just part 2 of the same sample. It's not a different test. It's not a test 2-3 weeks later. It is the same test. Dan, I'll throw it to you because I kind of got my views and opinions out there, just kind of on multiple fronts, I guess, kind of what if you thought this was to be expected, which I think a lot of people were, and how do you think Churchill Downs responded and took action with a 2-year ban?
Yeah, so I'll start out by saying I'm a little limited in what I can say personally. I work in racing promotions, right? I'm a marketing guy. And at the end of the day, as I said from the outset, regardless of what explanation there is for this is something that's just not good for racing in terms of public perception. The bottom line is whether this was accidental, whether it was, whether there is any sort of valid excuse that could be made for it. At the end of the day, the headline, Kentucky Derby winner tests positive for banned substance, is not one that horse racing needs. And so at the end of the day, I think Churchill made the decision that there had to be some accountability, specifically as it relates to tarnishing the reputation, I think just publicly even, of the world's biggest race of the Kentucky Derby. And so, look, whether that punishment was too much, enough, or just right, I don't think it's for me to say. But, it's certainly, I think I wouldn't surprise to hear the split sample come back positive and also come back for sort of actually an elevated level. I think initially it was 21 picograms. The split sample came back 25 picograms. I think that was to be expected just based on the fact that as the story coming from the Baffert camp sort of evolved in the days following the release of the initial test, the initial result, they had indicated that, oh yes, indeed, we had given the horse an ointment which included, or which one of its ingredients was betamethasone. So I think they had sort of acknowledged that yes, indeed, that you may find you may find betamethasone in the split sample. So I don't think it was surprising from that perspective.
Yeah, exactly. What I will say, I'm not going to dive in. I'm not going to pretend like I'm a pharmacist like everyone else on Twitter, because I'm not. But what I will say, and you gave more detail than I knew originally. So I appreciate that, and I hope some people appreciate that as well. From my end, I'm not going to say if it was harsh or not, but I will say it is a stand that has been made. It is an official. It's a big time stance, and it's tough to tell what the ramifications of that are now. I guess we'll begin with next year's or this year's 2-year-olds into next year 3-year-old campaign. We'll see what happens. I think it's really tough to kind of indicate what kind of stance has been made as of right now, just because we're already at the end of this year's Triple Crown. Let's try to revisit this maybe next January, February, March type of thing. And we'll see, or maybe even earlier, maybe with the 2-year-old Breeder Cup races in November. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I think that's probably a better timeline of where we can judge what type of impact this had. But nonetheless, it is a big stand. We do have a lot of racing to get to, and that's why I brought Danonymous Dan himself on. I wanted to get your opinion. You gave us a few races that we're going to break down, and we'll start with the Ogden Phipps. So we're going to go all the way to race number 7.
Did I lose? Is it just me now? Have I taken over Ricky's show? I see the clock going, and I see just me on the screen. So I guess I can take it from here until Ricky gets back.
No, I don't know. Sorry about that. My Wi-Fi has been crazy this morning. I have no idea what was going on, but we are back. I apologize. We are showing.
I was like, I thought you're like, I had enough. I did the bad.
I'm so sorry for that. I have no idea. They're doing construction and everything, and the weather's really bad. I really, really apologize for that. Now, with that being said, hopefully that was a quick, as Dennis chimes in, you are the racing dudes. I guess you are. Again, everyone, I apologize for that. I don't know what happened. With that being said, we are going to start here with the Ogden Phipps in race number 7. If you guys didn't get this news, I think it came out 35 minutes ago. Danonymous Dan's favorite horse of the race, Valiance, is out. I texted Aaron Halterman, Valiance is out.
My play of the day, like not only my play in the Phipps, my play of the day was Valiance.
Yeah, Aaron Halterman, I texted him, and he said, and I quote, "son of a B." I'm not going to print. So I think that news is really harming to a lot of people. But with that said, this is still a quality field. I asked Dan if he wanted to talk about it, and he said, yeah, this is still a really good group. We might, let's go through it. So Dan, I'll throw it to you. With Valiance being out, how does this race kind of shape up to you? Do you potentially see this being one on the front end because Valiance is probably going to come off the pace? How does this kind of shape up for you? And if you don't mind, who is your top choice now as we kind of take one runner out?
Yeah, so first of all, I'll just say, obviously, I'm disappointed for myself and for all the bettors who were looking to bet on Valiance, and to see her come back to the races, obviously, hoping the best for her and Todd and Eclipse and that whole team. And, hopefully we'll see her soon back at the races, because I think she's really got a huge upside. I think we only got a glimpse late last year of how good she could be. And I think that she is going to be a player moving forward in this division. So hopefully we'll see Valiance back at the races soon. I still think it's a pretty intriguing race from a pace perspective, a pace handicapping perspective. I mean, the bottom line is you've got She Dares the Devil, who we've seen now repeatedly kind of flaunt her stuff when she gets to the lead. If she can get to the lead or be sitting just a touch off of it like she was in the Kentucky Oaks last year and pressing the pace, she's very dangerous. And we've seen her do it. Her best races obviously have been at Churchill Downs, but we also saw her do it at Oaklawn. Assuming, she takes to Belmont, which I don't see why she wouldn't, she obviously figures to be a big player here and will take a lot of money. The only sort of hang up here is that you've got Latruska in the race, who, of course, has run her best races on the front end. Now, look, anytime you handicap a smaller field like this, you're going to say, well, look, these two horses can't possibly just kind of battle each other into submission, right? That would be just completely bonkers for both the jockeys to make that decision. But sometimes, you don't really have a choice. And so I think if you do expect the race to unfold the way, the running styles of both Latruska and She Dares the Devil would indicate that it might, you got to figure they're going to be going at least a decent pace, an honest pace up front. and that those two, even if they're not battling head and head, will at least provide a little bit of a setup for the horses sitting just off of them. Now, I'm not envisioning a horse coming from 20 lengths out of it, but I am envisioning a horse like I was with Valiance. I was envisioning her sitting just off of them tracking, which is why I liked her. But the other horse who I sort of liked in the race, even with Valiance in it, was Swiss Skydiver. I think Swiss Skydiver's being a bit overlooked here. Granted, she's 5-2 on the morning line. Who knows? She might even go off second choice or the favorite, just because people see the name, they remember, oh yeah, she won the Preakness. She's a pretty good horse. But I think she, we did not see the best of her in the Apple Blossom. She had an opportunity to either go through an opening on the rail or to just settle, kind of further back. And instead, she got a little bit of an in-between ride from Robbie Alvarado. He went a little bit, he stopped, he went. And at the end of the day, what it allowed for was Latruska to be loose on the lead and really have plenty in reserve late. Obviously, you also had Monomoy Girl on the outside, who's obviously all class and not in this race. And so when I look at how that race unfolded, I think that was more a byproduct of where Swiss Skydiver was positionally and how Latruska was allowed to be able to run loose on the lead. And I don't think that's going to happen here with She Dares the Devil pressing from the outside. And so I think Swiss Skydiver becomes a lot more attractive to me given my anticipated or pace projecting for this race. And she's also getting Jose Ortiz up for the first time, which I think is a huge upgrade for her. So I'm on Swiss Skydiver. I think She Dares the Devil doesn't need the lead, but will be close, and I think is ultimately a super classy filly, and I think she'll be there late, and I think it's probably Swiss Skydiver, She Dares the Devil, and if I'm going to give you any price at all to kind of round things out, it would be Queen Nakia. She came back off the layoff, ran a huge race in the Royal Delta. Looks like she took a step back in her last race, but there were some excuses there. She wasn't settled early. And that even though it was, you look at the top flight at Aqueduct, how good could that race have been? That was a good race. You had Horologist winning that race, Mrs. Danvers in second. She comes out of a pretty tough race there. And so for Safi Joseph, who's been obviously lighting it up everywhere, including at Belmont, I think Queen Nakia at a price is intriguing maybe as a sort of long shot exacta play, but more likely if you want to kind of hammer a straight trifecta, I think Queen Nakia is logical for third.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to throw in a fact for all these races. All these fillies and mares, not one of them has won at Belmont. So that is my fact for this race. I think it's 0 for 5, 0 for 6 combined. I'm not doing math, but none of these horses have ever won at Belmont. So that is my fact here. I'm kind of with you on Swiss Skydiver, and the only reason I wasn't even on Valiance, and I just think it's too tough of a spot to come back off the bench. I usually try to avoid those types of horses when you haven't run since November and now you're not running till June. It's a long ways to go for anyone, for any horse. It's also, Dan, for me, when it comes to mares, sometimes they hit a wall, and more so than the boys. And Curtis Magic Hallward taught me that sometimes, usually not at 5, but usually sometimes 6 or 7, they just don't have it anymore. And I would have liked to see a start out of her. I would have loved if she took money because I think she's extremely talented, but you see all the other runners that we're talking about have won, if 2 or 3 races this year. I just thought it was a tough spot. But I am with you on Swiss Skydiver. I think she's going to be a lot more tactical. Dennis brings up this stat on Robbie Alvarado. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Robbie Alvarado is good or bad, but if you've listened in the past, you know my feelings. Obviously, Jose Ortiz is an upgrade. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not here.
Is that actually, has he really only won 3 other races? Is that a real stat?
I'm not sure. I hope it is. Otherwise, I'm giving out false information.
Wow, that's. I mean, I think it's possible. I mean, just the fact that I think that it's possible that it's a real stat probably says, I think, all you need to say. But right. It is still a bit surprising.
Right, exactly. It's surprising nonetheless. Oh, no. So he's saying this is including the Preakness. Okay, so either way. But even if it's including the Preakness, it doesn't make it that much better, unfortunately. No, I mean, the fact that, right, we could even wrap our mind around it as a thought is scary, right? It's not like you said, oh, Irad Ortiz. We're like, all right, that's not accurate. But, when we're talking about this, Obviously, it's an upgrade for sure, but I'm with you. It kind of seems like it's going to be Latruska. She Dares a Devil. She Dares a Devil, Latruska. And then Swiss Skydiver from the rail, just sitting kind of third. Kind of the race that she ran in the Beholder Mile, broke from the rail and just kind of sat there until the pocket opened up. Either way, the rail could open up or you tip out 3 wide. Either way, Jose Ortiz is more than capable of making that decision. He just has to kind of sit there. I couldn't get there on Queen Nakia. I don't really see a long shot, to be honest. I just think you have, unfortunately, without Valiance, I thought Valiance was the wild card. To me, you have a tier A and a tier B. And it kind of seems like someone from tier A is going to win. I don't know what type of price you're going to get back because Swiss Skydiver could be the favorite. I think you're legitimately looking at like an 8-5, a 9-5, and a 5-2, like something in that range. Like I think that's a legitimate fair price. But I don't think you're going to get anything too short that if you have a strong opinion, you can hammer that win. Like I don't think you're going to see a 6-5 on any of them. I'd be shocked. But Valiance, the wild card who we hadn't seen, was the horse that we're going to miss out. Again, I think for me, before we move on, the biggest storyline is the pace setup. There's 6 horses. If anyone's dueling themselves into submission, it's automatically a bad ride. And if we go through the jockeys, Jose Ortiz, Irad Ortiz, Tyler Gaffleone, Florent Giroux, Manny Franco, and Joel Rosario, I'll take any of them, to be brutally honest. Like I'm not upset with anyone in that race. Mind you, Luis Saez is the one not riding. So it's probably going to be a rider race. They should all be bunched up. But this is a quality field. This is one of the best fields, and even though it's compact, it's going to be a good field nonetheless. Let's get to the Just a Game stakes. We're going to scroll down here. We're going to.
Can I follow you up? Would you be mad at me if I made one more point about the Ogden fence?
No, I wouldn't be mad at all.
So I want to say, so you actually reminded me of 2 things. One with the jockey conversation. I was looking up just for fun, history, and you could do this with any program you have. I use Stats Race Lens. You could do it with Formulator. Just kind of looking up jockey trainer combos. Now, usually on big days like this, it doesn't matter. We know these horses. It is more about the horse. But if you feel like you're in a rider race, you may want to look up something like this, where, especially with like Brad Cox, right? Like everyone thinks of Brad Cox, they think of Florent Giroux, and they're like, oh yeah, like Giroux and Cox in graded stakes races, they hit at a super high percentage, and they do. I was surprised to find that like Rosario up for Cox in dirt graded stakes races actually is a higher percentage play than Cox and Giroux. I think it was something like 38% off a decent size sample. I want to say it was like, something like 16 to 20 races, 38%. And so Bonnie South, I think probably is a bit under the radar as one who, like that would be the horse who I leave off of like my pick 5 or pick 6 or even, I like if I'm playing the race straight up, and I told you if I played like a straight try that I hammered and I leave Bonnie South out, I could see Bonnie South kind of messing things up for me. So that was one thing I wanted to mention. The other thing is you said, and I think it's fair, you said that, you shy away from horses coming back off of long layoffs, making their seasonal debuts. And I think that oftentimes that is the case, like, especially if you have like a long distance horse. So with this one in particular, who, last with Valiance was last seen running at 1 1/8. Before that also ran at 1 1/8 in the Spinster, won there. Now coming back, if she was coming back in like a 7 furlong allowance, and if her trainer was, I don't know, Graham Motion, I would say, yeah, she probably, maybe she needs a race. It's a tune-up anyway. She's going to be bet down. She doesn't represent value. I'm not interested. I might just sit out this race. But when you have a guy like Todd Pletcher, who usually, even off of long layoffs, brings them back ready to go. And if you see a strong workout pattern, and there's a work 2 back there, like 59-3, about, I think 10 or 12 days ago, with Todd Pletcher, I throw that rule out. If he's bringing a horse back at the distance, which they're expected to excel, and it's Todd Pletcher, I'm a little more interested. So I think I would say this. I think that generally the rule that you said Curtis mentioned to you, like, I think it makes sense, but I think you also have to like consider who the trainer is and what the race is that the horse is coming back in.
Yeah, no, and I guess maybe I should have clarified. I wouldn't have liked her in this field because of how talented it is.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like if she used to come back, I don't even care about the distance because you're right. When Pletcher's in the mix, you kind of throw a lot of your rules out. But it's more so like she's facing legitimately to this point, because we haven't seen her, like 3 of the best older filly and mares in the country. Monomoy girl's not in the race. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's just an incredibly tough spot, because if she were to win, if say she were running and she were to win, you're probably putting her at number 1 at the moment, because like it would be tough not to, unless you're still all in on the Monomoy girl thing who just lost to Latruska. So it's just the spot. It's like this is like the one spot where I told myself I wouldn't play her coming back. But I have to take a stand somewhere, because you could have made a case for 1, 2, 3, or 5, those post positions. You would have to take a stand somewhere. Luckily, there's no stand to be made because she's not going to be running, unfortunately. We're going to move down to race number 8 here. That is the Longines Just a Game Stakes. Dan, I'll let you go here. There's a field of 12. I thought this was the most wide. I'll start with race with number 1 here, and then we'll go down. I thought this was the most wide open field of all of them. I thought taking a short price was not the way to go. And if you're playing those pick 4s, that 8 through 11 pick 4, or a pick 3, I thought like you can make a case for 6 or 7 of these. So I'll let you start. I'll let you try to break down this puzzle piece that we have for us and see where you're going here.
I love this race. I think it's a really, really fun race. Like any race, let's talk about how it shapes up from a pace perspective. And I think when you look at that, you got to scroll down a little bit to the 11 horse Blowout. Blowout comes from a blowout wire-to-wire win in the Distaff Turf Mile at Churchill. We've seen this horse do some pretty spectacular things. I mean, he opened up early there by 8 lengths. And, it looked like he was coming back to them and tiring, but Flavian saved just enough, had just enough in the tank with this one to get her home. And it's pretty remarkable how she dug in late, because most horses get passed in that spot, considering, and look, she wasn't going blistering like all out pace early, but most horses, when they start coming back to a field like that, do get passed late. And she had horses surrounding her. We saw her do something similar, actually, 3 races back in the Noble Damsel, where she didn't open up as big of a lead, but she went a crazy fast pace in that one. She went 22 flat, 44-1, 108-1, and still had enough to hold off some pretty nice horses. Only got passed by Viadera there, but held off Sweet By and By, who's back in this race. So I think Blowout is the goods. I think she really is like, she's true speed, she's honest speed, she's game speed, she's gutsy speed. Now, the only sort of wild card in here for her is that, as opposed to, the last race, the Distaff Turf Mile, she now may run into a little bit more pressure. Now, I'm not saying anyone can like straight go with her if she wants to go top speed early. Of course, that would compromise her. But the 9 horse Summer Romance is one who's interesting, comes in for Charlie Appleby. If you haven't watched the replays of both Summer Romance and Altica, the 8 horse, I would suggest that you do that. Look at the Balanchine and look at the Cape Verde at Meydan. 2 very differently run races. In the Cape Verde, Summer Romance went super fast early and then came back to them, got passed by Altica and a few others. And then in the Balanchine, Summer Romance was allowed to get to the lead and slow things down, and she ended up wiring there. So I think those are 2 interesting races. She's not going to be able to get to the front and slow things down in this race. We know that because of Blowout. So what happens here? I think it's logical to assume that Charlie Appleby, who trains both Summer Romance and Altica, will send, as fast as Summer Romance could possibly go with Saez up, will send her to the front and try to at least soften up Blowout a little bit. I think if she does that, it sets up for some horses coming from off the pace. I was actually fascinated in watching these races where, even in that last race, the Balanchine, Altica's turn of foot late is pretty dazzling. It's eye-catching, and it's worth watching. If you haven't watched the replays, again, go back, go to YouTube. Like, people are always like, where do I find these international replays? If you go to YouTube and you type in Balanchine, Meydan, you'll find it. Watch how she gets moving late. I think she could be a real danger here. Charlie Appleby has had success at the Breeders' Cup, has sent some horses over the past few years and had success. So very legit. And he also books Mike Smith to ride. I'm seeing 8-1 in the morning line. If I get that price, I'd be absolutely thrilled.
Yeah. Again, I think you can make a legitimate case for all of these horses. I'm going to take a shot with one that I thought was really interesting, and that was the 4 Regal Glory. Simply just loves his distance. 6 out of 7, first or second. Now, that's not going to be – I'll scroll up so you guys can see Regal Glory. That's not going to be good enough, but I think she's going to be just tactically placed. We assume Summer Romance and Blowout are probably going to be the 2 horses on top. I assume it's probably going to be Summer Romance first, then Blowout, but I guess it could be Blowout first or Summer Romance. It's going to be tough to tell. Obviously, Luis Saez will send. That's the way he wants to write anyway. But other than that, I'm not sure how much pace there is in this race. I think it's kind of just those 2, and then you have a few mid-pack. Like, I don't think anyone else is going to want to go. I'm kind of hoping, and that'll lead to my other horse I'm interested in. I think she's going to be able to sit right behind. So for the record, I guess I'm all in on Jose Ortiz through this part. Like, if he has a good day, I'm going to have a good day. If he doesn't, then I'm not. Obviously, Peter Brandt, Chad Brown. I don't need to get into those connections. Good luck finding better connections than Chad Brown here in the United States on the turf. I think that's a challenge to do so. Jose Ortiz just wins on this horse. So the last time he didn't win aboard her was the Intercontinental to a horse named Newspaper of Record. Some people may or may not have heard of her, but Newspaper of Record is one of Chad Brown's best horses ever.
That was soft ground too, and that was my only holdup with this one is that she's caught soft ground a lot, and she ran pretty well the past 2. I mean, she obviously won, including a Grade 3 win over soft ground. And when she's caught firm ground, she actually hasn't run as well of late. Now, that could just be an anomaly. I mean, we're looking at a small sample here recently. I mean, prior to that, she has won over firm ground. So, it's hard to pinpoint there. But I'm with you, especially, Chad. It's not just Chad and the turf. It's just specifically on this circuit at Belmont on these days. I mean, how many times can we see it?
Well, you know what, you advanced my point. I was getting there. It's rained last weekend like everywhere across the country. It's raining there today, and it's going to be raining there tomorrow. I promise you, if they list the course as firm, they are lying to you, because I'm watching outside and it's pouring. I'd be surprised if any of the turf races were on today for 2 reasons. 1, there's clearly going to be moisture in the track, and 2, they want to do everything they can to preserve it for Saturday. So that race everything will stay on the turf because it's not supposed to rain Saturday. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but it will probably be good at the best if you were to actually stand on it. To your point, Dan, which I couldn't get it out before you got there.
I got to shut up. I'm sorry.
Hasn't finished. She hasn't finished worse than second over wet turf. Whether that's good, whether that's yielding. So if there's any moisture in the track, she clearly loves it. And I anticipate, I don't like to handicap that way, but when stats stand out like that, you have to take into consideration. The other one for me, I thought that was interesting, was Sweet By and By. I kind of like the way she's been running this year, and it kind of seems like she's getting better. She ran in the Athenia last year and wasn't very good, but this year she's come back as a 6-year-old and didn't face any of those issues that I was talking about, maybe that 5 to 6 or 6 to 7. She's gotten much better. She ran in the Marshall River down at Gulfstream to start the year, and then she ran in the Sand Springs March 27th for Safi Joe, and she looked much better, much more tactical. Can she sit like 3rd or 4th? I think I'm targeting that like close mid-pack area. For the record, I am not using Altica or Summer Romance. And that is going to either kill me or I'm going to look like a genius. I'm not sure yet, but I'm staying with that theme because, to Dan's point, if I like one, I have to like the other. I think that's fair. Unless you just say Summer Romance can take this field gate to wire. I think this is an incredibly good field. So I'm going to look for 2 horses that are sitting off. We can get to I want to ask you this question before we move on. Who do you think the post-time favorite is going to be? if you had $100, so you don't have to bet to win the race. You just have to bet who's going to be the favorite. I'll let you go, and then I'll go, and we'll see if we're on the same page here. Because it's tough. I think it's really tough. This is a tough question.
Yeah, I think people are going to try, like, even though logically the pace indicates that there's a good chance Blowout, kind of could run a similar race to Last Out, and you might say, well, maybe it's Blowout. I think it's probably going to be Pocket Square, just because of, it's Chad, Judmont, Irad, real, I almost said blowout win, but like super easy win in her U.S. debut Last Out. I think Pocket Square probably goes off as favorite.
I'm kind of with you too. I'm willing to throw out the 2 Charlie Appleby horses because what I've learned, not throw them out as in like not contenders, throw them out as favorites because a lot of people just don't know about them. They might not know Charlie Appleby. I'm sure they know Godolphin through Maxfield and that stuff. They know Mike Smith and Luis Saez, but they don't really have any running lines. You have to kind of do your own research. So I'm going to throw those out in terms of post-time favorites. I'll take a shot and say the post-time favorite is going to be Blowout. I was going to say Pocket Square, but there's I don't want to say paceless, but for not a ton of speed, you get Flavien Prat, who's been aboard the last 2 times. The only time Flavien was recently didn't win was in the Matriarch, losing to Villadera. If you take the Villadera races out, Blowout looks even better on paper. And she did win the Distaff Turf Mile on May 1st. Obviously, that was Kentucky Derby weekend. So I'll say Blowout because they're the connections. But I think you can make a case for a lot of them to be post-time favorites. Legitimately,
I think Blowout should be the post-time favorite. I mean, based on recent form, based on what she did Last Out, and really, I mean, like, look at her. I mean, just go down, race after race. I mean, she hasn't run a bad race in her entire career. I mean, she's just absolutely steady as can be. She kind of feels to me like the female version of Factor This. I don't know if you remember, like Factor This last year and even the year before was like, just because, I don't know, I guess he was racing in like Louisiana or whatever, like would kind of get overlooked in the discussion about which turf milers were at the top of the class. But he would do the same thing. He would go to the lead, and for a while it was like if he didn't get the lead, well, he could be softened up and lose. But then he started showing a new dimension. I think that's what we have with Blowout. Like we're seeing here maybe a little bit of an evolution from her, where she can go just about as fast as she wants up front, and she's usually going to hang on, and if not win, finish no worse than second. So I think Blowout deserves to be the second choice. I will say another one's going to take money who we didn't mention, who I think is very logical, is the 10 horse Tamahir. She comes out of the Jenny Wiley Last Out. La Signore and Maxim Rate finished behind her in that race, and they just came back and finished first and second in the Gamely on Monday at Santa Anita. Plus Tamahir won her U.S. debut at Belmont. Second off the layoff here, Chad, Javier. I mean, there's a lot to like there too.
Yeah, Chad Brown's owning this race. He's got the 4 Regal Glory, the 6 Pocket Square, the 10 Tamahir, and the 11 Blowout, and I think they're all legitimate uses. But yeah, again, really, I think especially for the turf, the dirt might be a little bit closer to fast because it's going to be really warm, but there will be moisture in the surface. I could promise you that. It's not supposed to stop raining probably on and off tomorrow. It's supposed to be raining pretty much all day today. Let's move on to the next race, the Manhattan. Dan, you told me you had a horse. Oh, you know what? Let's do the Met Mile first because that's going to come up. We'll go back.
Fast, right? It's either Nick Scale or not Nick Scale.
Yeah, no, I think that's what it comes down to. So let's not talk about Nick Scale. I'll pose a different question to you. If you couldn't say Nick Scale was out of this race, or you want to take it the other way and say I'm going to play a straight exacta, or however you want to look at the question, what would be the horse that you'd be honing in on, saying I can get a price here, or I'm just going to hammer this home, or I think this is a sneaky play that people should keep an eye on, assuming we're going to eliminate Nick Scale from the question here?
I think Silver State. Silver State makes a lot of sense. Steve Asmussen has won this race 2 of the past 3 years. He's had, he doesn't ship to New York often. And when he ships in for Belmont Stakes Day, he won the Belmont Stakes with Creator a couple of years back as well. He's usually shipping in with the goods. Just this meet, I mean, he's had 11 horses run, 4 of them have won. But that's just the human side of it. I mean, in terms of the horse himself, I mean, what's not to like? I mean, he's won 5 in a row. Unless you feel that like the Oaklawn bunch out there is so much better than is so much worse than Dr. Post and Mischievous Alex. I mean, I don't think that's the case. I think some of the horses running in those races, Fearless, Shasha Shake Me Up, Rated R Superstar, even though he's a bit older. I mean, those horses are all kind of in the same quality, of like Mischievous Alex. Certainly, Dr. Post is a bit of a wild card. Second start of the year, came back, posted a huge number in the Westchester. But I think for me, I keep going back to Silver State. He's a horse who's always there at the wire, and he's got a bit of early speed, so I think he can hang close. You haven't seen that speed as much going longer in the last couple of races, but I think he's shown speed before, and he's got speed. So I think for me, it would be Silver State. And even if Knicks Go, there's no reason to think Knicks Go isn't going to run the race. Knicks Go is in the race, and even with Knicks Go in the race, if you had any questions about how he's going to run first race back from Saudi Arabia, long period of time off, will we see the same Knicks Go? If you have any doubts about him, I think Silver State's a good alternative.
I'm kind of with you. The biggest question mark for me about Silver State, I don't know what he faced in Oaklawn, because you're right, that's slightly questionable. And how's he going to run without Lasix? I mean, though, again, I'm going to trust that Asmussen has his horse ready without the Lasix part. That's not as much of a concern. The horses that he's beaten, they're not going to strike any fear into anyone, which is Fearless, Rated R Superstar, and Hunk of Burning Love. Those are the horses that finished second. Right. He did beat Night Ops a couple times, and I believe Night Ops is better than some of the horses I just mentioned. But nonetheless, I'm kind of with you, because I look at Dr. Post and I look at Mischievous Alex, and I'm like, I kind of know what they are. We don't really know what Silver State is, because he seems to be on the rise. I mean, is he a true Grade 1 winner? I'm not sure, but I do know last October he was in an allowance race, and he just hasn't lost since his 3-year-old campaign when he was trying to get to the Kentucky Derby. Hasn't lost since. So maybe it's a 4-year-old who's just better. That's extremely possible. Maybe he's just got some more maturity. I'm completely with you. I think Silver State is the horse that I'll be hammering, because that's a more, on these bigger days, Dan, but better than I'll ever know. A lot of people bet horses that they've heard of, connections. Everyone knows Todd Pletcher and Johnny V. Everyone knows, maybe not Safi Joe, but everyone knows Irad. Ricardo and Steve might be a little bit off the bit for people who don't watch every day like us, or who are into it every day. That's one. And the other thing is, people are like, Oaklawn Park, I don't know. I'm seeing, for Dr. Post, I'm seeing the Haskell, I'm seeing the Belmont, Mischievous Alex, just ran in the Carter, which is at Aqueduct. Maybe that's not as big of a thing, but I kind of think Silver State is the horse that's kind of going this way, trending up, and the other horses, we kind of know what they are. So I'm completely with you there. But again, I think Knicks Go is the horse to beat. I'm sure you think the same as well, and I think that's going to be a lot of people's singles. I think if you were to ask them for a single, this is probably the most likely one. If he doesn't even run an A+ race, if he runs his A- to A race, that's probably still good enough. And I think that's what makes him a legitimate single.
And to be fair, I mean, the Saudi Cup, I mean, if we remember what happened there, Knicks Go went extremely fast early and took pressure the entire time from Charlatan, ultimately took back and then tried to re-engage. That's not Knicks Go's race. Again, he was drawn to the inside of Charlatan, who went super fast. So those were like completely adverse conditions. He still hung on, finished 4th. I mean, he was well beaten, but he still hung on. Knicks Go is a quality horse. If Knicks Go shows up, if the Knicks Go we've seen over the past year and a half shows up, Knicks Go wins this race by 15 to 20 lengths. I mean, realistically. But if he doesn't, for any reason, it's not. I think Silver State, and then we should also say Mischievous Alex. We've talked about Safi Joseph a few times. I think we'll know early. We'll see it. There are a couple of other Saffie Joseph runners we've discussed so far in some of the earlier stakes. Take a look at how they run. If they're up the track, I maybe might downgrade Mischievous Alex a little bit. If they run well, and his runners are primed for the day, then I might upgrade Mischievous Alex a little bit. But I think all in all, when you look at the fact that this horse has, in his last 3 starts, won by a combined, I think, 12, 13, 14 lengths, blowing out that field in the Carter, 109 Bauer there. 46% Saffie is with IRAD up. That's off a 65 race sample. I mean, that's absurd. They win 1 out of every 2 races together. I mean, that doesn't exist. So, taking all that context, you'd be crazy not to use Mischievous Alex. And then I think there's this interesting psychology game that begins. And it's like you said, if Knicks Go wins, everyone's singling Knicks Go. So that's what I think most people are thinking. So what are they going to do? They're going to add Mischievous Alex. They're going to add Silver State. They might even add Dr. Post on, to their pick 4s and pick 5s, or maybe they'll just leave Knicks Go out entirely. In the process, that sort of, I think, thins out the potential value that you get by beating Knicks Go, because I think everyone's going to try to then beat Knicks Go because psychologically they assume everyone's going to single Knicks Go. So I don't know how that ultimately plays out, but I think you should probably just handicap this race, go with the horse you're most confident in, and for my money, not spread too deep, because I think that's what some people in trying to beat Knicks Go might be doing here. So I don't know. It's one of those paralysis by analysis type things, or paralysis by overanalysis. I think Knicks Go is a logical horse. If you like him, single him. If you think he's vulnerable, pick the horse that you think is most likely to beat him. One
thing I always say on these big days, which obviously Belmont, whether it's today, tomorrow, Saturday, they're all going to be big days. A lot of people are going to be playing all weekend. Don't worry about trying to beat favorites because the pools are so big. Don't worry about it. This isn't, I'm not going to mention some of the smaller tracks, but this isn't, for example, like a Monmouth Park on a Friday afternoon twilight. Don't worry about it. Not to be mean to Monmouth Park, but just Laurel, whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
don't come at Maryland. Don't mention Laurel.
Right, we'll pick. Well, fine. I'm a New Jersey guy. We'll keep it to Monmouth or Finger Lakes. It's, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to worry about that stuff. So that's one of the things we always like. The pools, the prices will be there. If you use all favorites and it's favorites, they'll get your prices will be there. Don't worry about that. Just go with the horse that you think is going to win, or horses that you think have a chance. Your prices will be there. Let's move on to the Resorts World Casino Manhattan Stakes. I got a new sponsor, I guess, this year. We have a field of 10. We have, in my opinion, 2 horses that I think stand out, but Dan's not using either of them. When he texted me, he said, I have a horse that I honestly almost jumped at him off my couch when he texted me that. The 2 horses, for reference, I do believe are Domestic Spending and Colonel Liam on paper. I think those are probably ahead, just a tier above, or maybe a grade, A+ to A is whatever. But Dan, you have a long shot that you think has legitimate shot. Tell everyone listening who that is and kind of your thought process behind that.
Yeah, I'll preface this by saying I think there's a chance we come out of this race with Domestic Spending emerging as the clear-cut, top of his class horse here. I mean, top of the class horse here. Like, I think that he's got all the pieces to be, the next, bricks and mortar, the next, superstar in this division. So I think Domestic Spending is a legitimate horse, and I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination that he's going to be easy to beat. But I don't handicap these races like, looking for favorites or looking for what's obvious. I mean, I'm trying to find angles that might put me on a horse that may have a shot at winning, or at least finishing second at a bigger price. And I've landed on City Man. For starters, I'll say I do have a bias. I love Tyler Gaffleone in big turf races on big days. I think he's as good as you can get. Put him in the class with Flavien Prat as just being absolutely rock solid on the turf. And I've actually had great experience. Like, I think about Zulu Alpha in the Pegasus World Cup turf last year, betting Tyler on the rail. I also think about Next Shares at Keeneland a couple of years ago at a big price. When he's on the rail with a horse who can rate and he gets a setup, there's no one better at saving ground and making that move at just the right time. I think Tyler is the best at that, and I think he's going to get that sort of trip with City Man. I thought City Man ran huge first off the layoff in a very, sort of in a smallish, oddly run race in the Fort Marcy. Tribuvan, who's back in this race, speed horse, opened up early, slowed things down. The only horse that I thought made a real significant move was City Man, and it was this really nice sustained run. But the bottom line is, at this level, you let a horse walk on the lead like that, and you don't pressure them, they're going to hang on. And so that's what happened there, especially in a smaller field like that. I think you can give them a little bit of a break for that one. And I think I expect a step forward here, second off the layoff in terms of the pace. I'm also projecting Channel Cat, who obviously won the Man of War last out. His only way to win this race, and his only way to win any race, is to get to the lead. And, Johnny figured that out last out, sent them as fast as they needed to go, was taking pressure from his outside, kept going. They got to send City Man. So City Man's there now. He's up front with Tribuvan. And I think the pace sets up pretty honestly. I think they might open up some distance on the field, but I think sitting in about that third or fourth spot, saving all the ground, would be City Man. And I think that City Man has races, to end last year, broke through the gate in his last race of 2020 was Ease. So obviously you don't look at that race, but ended the season on a positive progression and came back with a number in the Fort Marcy that I think keeps him competitive here at the very least. I think has him in the mix late, and I think he gets the right pace set up. He's 15-1 morning line. I think he probably goes off somewhere between 8 and 12-1. And I'll give you a guarantee here. He will not be off the board.
That's a pretty big guarantee. So I don't love City Man, but this is what I do agree with. When you look at a long shot, which 15-1 on the morning line certainly falls into that category for sure. We're not debating that. You need help. So one of the things that I'm looking for, breaking from the rail. Okay, first of all, Christophe Clement, A+ trainer on the turf. Don't need to get into that. Winning at 28% overall at the meet. Tyler Gaffalione is 0%, but that's because he doesn't ride here. So he literally has no rides at this Belmont meet. This will be like his first, maybe today or tomorrow, but he has no stats. So don't worry about that. One of the best. He has enough tactical speed where he's not going to get hurt by Bye Melvin or Master of Foxhound. I think that's extremely important to point out. Because or domestic spending doesn't have any, obviously when you get to these longer races, there's not going to be as much speed, but City Man doesn't have a horse to the inside that has to break sharply. City Man can easily outbreak post 1 through 4. That's extremely, extremely important. The bigger the long shot, the more help you need. That's kind of what I tell people as a consensus. The better the horse, the shorter the price, the more things can go against them to win. So I'm with you there. I look at City Man though, and you might laugh. I'm not sure if he's better on the turf or the dirt. I'm genuinely not sure because he ran well against Chestertown in the Albany. In his last race against Bankit, Mr. Buff, which is state bred, New York bred races, broke through the gate and was Ease. So we can throw a race through that. He is very versatile. He seems like he can run on both. To me, it's just kind of like you need to be a turf specialist. But there are a lot of good points that you brought up. And when you look at these races, sometimes Belmont is known for gate to wire speed. If you have any of it, you're going to be extremely tough. And I'm kind of with you. Where is that speed coming from? I'm not entirely sure. So City Man through that first turn, so that's like the first couple furlongs, first 3 furlongs, I think he's going to be right there. And I hate to say it, he might even be on the lead, depending on how things go. Maybe you don't want him on the lead. But,
I don't see that just because, first of all, he's the closest he's been to the lead was at Saratoga last year in allowance. They were going fairly slow and he was still a length off of it. I just think that the horses with the speed in this race are drawn to his outside and they can't afford to get caught out wide. And I think, granted, they're not drawn in post 11 or 12. They're the 7 and 8, but I think both of those horses know that they need to get position early. So I think they'll be ridden pretty aggressively. If City Man is on the lead and is taking pressure from 2 horses on his outside, sure, I'll know right away that my guarantee is not going to come to fruition.
Well, you know what the interesting part is? Channel Cat, this race is like a cutback in distance for him. He's like 1.25 miles. I only have to run 10 furlongs. Like he wants more than that. And Tribuvan, I'm not sure if Tribuvan's any better than City Man. I just think you're right. That I think the setup really, really helped last time out, even though he was coming off of a layoff as well. Both of those horses came off extremely long layoffs, July 4th for Tribuvan, and then City Man, December 12th. So in a race that, in my book, doesn't count because he broke through and that was it. And then ran in the Gio Ponte and was good last year too. To your point, though, I'm going to wrap it up before we get to a big Belmont preview. I think Domestic Spending is the next superstar. I truly do. The point that when we came on the Turf Classic, I think we did, the Racing Dudes did something a long time ago, and I said this horse hadn't run since November 28th, was 5th. In that final marking there, and closed to finish by a neck to beat, literally dead heat with Colonel Liam. Colonel Liam had run, and I'm looking now, through 2 races prior. So the fitness might have been a complete issue. I think Domestic Spending is the next bricks and mortar. I look at Domestic Spending, and if he wins this race, you could, depending on by how much he does, and I think he will, you can make a legitimate case that he is the best horse going. Like, not turf, not dirt, not older, not 3-year-olds, whatever class. You can make a legitimate case if he beats Colonel Liam or anyone else by a couple, he might be the best horse in this country going. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. It's always tough to put a turf horse over a dirt horse, especially if Nick Sco just runs everyone off their feet. He's got to be top 3 if he beats this group. I mean, this is an incredibly tough group, but I'm going to hold you to that City Man guarantee. I hope you're right. If it's Domestic Spending and then City Man finishes second, now that would be perfect. That for me, that would be great. But hopefully City Man could win for you. That would be awesome.
I think I mean, I still haven't decided exactly how I'm going to play this race, but I see it being City Man, Domestic Spending. So I think logically some exactas are in the offing. And, I may even try a couple of supers with those 2 in the top 2. And underneath them, I will say, like, if I'm going to take a stand against anyone, I'm taking a stand against Colonel Liam. Like, he's making his, at this point, was the 5th start of the year. And he's, he's certainly, sure, he dead heated for the win on the Turf Classic, but he had way more of the run of the race than Domestic Spending did, who had to do a ton of work. And again, in his now his 5th start of the year, drawn wide in probably the toughest top to bottom field that he's faced so far. I'm willing to fade Colonel Liam here, and the horses I'd use underneath are actually the 6 Rock Emperor and the 9 Gufo. With Rock Emperor, I'll just say it was he was second in this race last year, and it was the same sort of pattern. He came back in the Fort Marcy. And, and a month later now he shows up in the Manhattan. And then last year, he did a very similar thing, came back, had a race, showed up here and finished second, lost by just a neck. And so I think Rock Emperor is as honest as they come. And I think, that's another one who, if you're playing trifectas, I think it'd be tough to leave him out of the mix.
Yeah, I also, for the record, I like Rock Emperor. We'll get to this comment real quick. Domestic Spending has never run on softer ground, which I anticipate there's going to be. Wonder how that would affect him. Sometimes it's kind of like for me, I always make if you have like a Patrick Mahomes, if it's snowing, if it's a hurricane, the guy's good. I don't care. And that's that's on how I look at Domestic Spending. Whatever the surface is, mind you, it's also going to affect some other horses potentially who don't have that experience. It's not just him. I look at him and I don't really care what the situation is. That's just the way I look at him. I just think he's literally a superstar in the making, and I think we're going to see that this year. We're going to get to the Belmont Stakes now, and I'm going to switch platforms. I told Dan I was going to do this. We're going to start with each horse. We're not going to do picks until the end. So basically what I'll do, I'm just going to name I'm just going to go through. I'll let Dan go at the end. I'm going to do this real quick. We have a field of 8, and I'll scroll that down as we go one by one. I'm just going to give a quick note or a quick fact real quick, 30 seconds about each horse, and then I'll let Dan kind of break this down. The first horse is Burbonic for Todd Pletcher. I mean, was absolutely horrible to a horse that was drugged. I don't know, the Wood Memorial before that he won, comes in at 15-1. Essential Quality was undefeated before the Kentucky Derby, was literally wide throughout after he got bumped. We're going to find out if he's the goods here. The pedigree suggests that it shouldn't be an issue distance-wise. We have Ron Bauer, the 3 at 3-1. Ron Bauer just won the Preakness. He's looking to win the second leg of this Triple Crown, and maybe he could have been a Triple Crown candidate had he run in the Derby. Who knows? The 4 is Hot Rod Charlie. Hot Rod Charlie just runs consistent races for the most part. Finishes in the money. Finished 3rd to Medina Spirit in the Kentucky Derby last month. The 5, France de Goino, made 1 start in the United States. Wasn't a good one. He's going to be a long shot, probably the longest shot on the board. The 6, Known Agenda, who ran in the Kentucky Derby. He also got shifted out. A lot of people liked him in the Florida Derby, and a lot of people were pointing to the Belmont for him a long, long time ago. So I think a lot of people will be trying to lock in on him here. The 7, Rock Your World. I will say this. I've been saying it for weeks. That was the worst ride Joel Rosario's ever given a horse that I could remember. Hopefully, he gives him a better ride here because I really think Rock Your World is talented. And the 8 is Overtook. Overtook, probably going to be your second biggest long shot. Frances de Goino. Frances Go de Ina, excuse me, will probably be that name's going to get me all week. Overtook will probably be a longer shot as well. So, Dan, with that being said, just a brief introduction. How do you want to break this down? Do you want to go horse by horse? Do you want to tell me a pace breakdown? Do you want to tell me who you like, who you don't like? We can take this any way you want to guide us here.
Yeah, we go horse by horse. I mean, I think that's fine. I won't attempt to say the name of the 5 horse, so we'll just call him the 5 when we get there. But yeah, we can start at the top with Burbonic, and thanks for pulling up the Belmont Stakes at a glance. For anybody who's looking to get just sort of a quick style, down and dirty overview of the Belmont Stakes and really almost every big race also in the lead up to the Breeders' Cup, the Challenge Series, go to americasbestracing.net. Our team just puts together just incredible content week after week, and there's a little something for everybody, whether you're having a conversation with guys like us who are who do this constantly and are handicapping constantly, and we could point out specific things in the racing form that are maybe between advanced to even more advanced, or if you're just a beginner, there's stuff for you at America's Best Racing. So that's my little spiel. Burbonic, don't like him. I actually was not totally against him in the Wood Memorial. I wasn't convinced the company that he was up against in the Wood Memorial. I questioned whether that field was that great at the time, and I thought Burbonic had finished well enough in his allowance in the race prior to make him a threat in the Wood. But I realized, thankfully, that he wasn't up to the level of the Derby field, and I completely just tossed him in the Derby, wisely so. He, obviously didn't do much there. Some people have pointed out, but, he had a less than ideal trip. I mean, that's going to happen. When you're in the 20 hole, you're a deep closer, and you've got to navigate your way past 19 other horses or 18 other horses. It's never going to go well for you. So it's not like he was a victim of, of anything unique. That being said, I think everything goes his way. He's still no better than 4th in this race. So for me, Burbonic is a toss. Yeah.
For the record, real quick, before Dan goes, I'm trying to zoom in. You guys can always go, if you can't quite see, I know it's a little small. I apologize for that, but okay. So that's Essential Quality. He's good. He's extremely good. We knew that.
Yeah, look, Essential Quality really has no excuse to not win this race, right? Like, at least going into the race, the horse was 5 for 5. He ran, for my money, he ran the biggest race of any horse in the Derby, covered the most ground of any horse, and was still, of any horse at least that finished in the mix, still beating only a length on the line. Mandaloon, Hot Rod Charlie, both had ground saving trips, and again, we're just like a head and a neck in front of them. So I'm not going to hold any of that against Essential Quality. And people sort of downplayed. They were like, "Oh, Rock Your World, broke poorly from the gate." Essential Quality not only got bumped out of the gate, he also got knocked sideways, and had to do his own fair bit of like early jostling and maneuvering, which usually takes a lot out of a horse. But this one apparently took very little out of him because he was still able to hang wide throughout and still be there at the finish line. And then the obvious thing that you have to consider in the Belmont more than any of the other Triple Crown races or any other 3-year-old race really is the distance and the pedigree. And Tapit, of course, he's the only Tapit in this race. Tapits have won 3 of the last 6 Belmont Stakes that have been run at a mile and a half. We're taking last year out of the mix. And so pedigree, excuses in his last race, overall resume, essential quality, should win this race.
Yeah, we'll move on to the 3 horse that is Ron Bauer, 3-1.
Yeah, so look, Ron Bauer is a horse I was super high on last year as a 2-year-old. I loved his first race back on the dirt, the American Pharoah. He did hang there, and I found him to be a little short there, and I was worried about the way he finished that race up. I bet him back in the juvenile. He made a nice move, but kind of stopped. They brought him back this year, won his first race over the all-weather at Golden Gate. And in the Bluegrass, I thought he was game and gutsy, but again, I didn't think he was doing his best running late. And so it was a shock to me when, he opened up the way he did. Like, him winning the Preakness wasn't completely out of the realm of possibility, but him winning the way he did was kind of a little surprising. I'm going to chalk that up to him really running into just the ideal race. He was well rested coming in. He had the top couple of horses going at each other throughout. He had a nice trip. It set up perfectly for him, and he rolled by them. There was no essential quality in that race. There was no Hot Rod Charlie in that race. There was no Rock Your World in that race. He runs a career top last out. I expect Ron Bauer is going to regress, and also I don't think he's meant for the distance, although people will argue Twirling Candy should be able to get the 1.5 miles. I don't think he's meant for this distance, and I think his best case scenario is finishing 3rd.
Let's move on to the number 4, and that is Hot Rod Charlie. Finished 3rd in the Derby. He's going to be 7-2 on the morning line.
So Hot Rod Charlie, sentimentally, I'm wearing a Hot Rod Charlie hat. This is in memory of Jake Panis, who's a big part of the ABR family. Our president, Stephen Panis, that was his son, and he lost Jake last year in a terrible accident. And the team of Hot Rod Charlie Boat Racing have been super gracious, and they've been racing in Jake's name and to raise awareness about the Jake Panis scholarship at the University of South Carolina. If you haven't seen that or heard of it, just Google it, Jake Panis Scholarship, and you'll see that. If you contribute to that, that would be great. The boat racing team also racing for melanoma research, so they're doing a lot of good as they're on this ride with Hot Rod Charlie. So sentimentally, he's the horse that I want to win this race. Logically, though, analytically, I do have some distance concerns. I think we've seen a couple of times going back to the Robert B. Lewis when he couldn't get by Medina Spirit there. Couldn't, of course, get by Medina Spirit or Mandaloon in the Kentucky Derby with what I thought was just an ideal trip there. I think he's just a horse who's got a bit of a limit, and I think that limit's probably about 1.16 miles, maybe 1.8 miles on his best day. I know he won at 1.316 Louisiana Derby, but again, he beat Midnight Bourbon. Obesos was closing on him. This is a different race. There are better horses in this race. There was no essential quality in that race. There was no Rock Your World in that race. There was no known agenda in that race. So Hot Rod Charlie for me it's just a real gutsy, gritty horse. Again, sort of reflecting the spirit of Jake, who's close to all of us, and who again we want him to win. But I just don't think he can win. I think best case scenario for Hot Rod Charlie is Rock Your World doesn't get out of the gate again, and Hot Rod Charlie gets to the lead and slows things down. If he can do that, I think he could finish in the money, but I still think you have a couple of horses that roll by him, and I think the most logical horse to roll by him would be Essential Quality.
We'll move on to the second half. We have a short field here, only 8. I think we can make this one quick. This is the fun. France Go Deina. Before you go, this is a miracle horse. Even on this horse's best day and everyone else's worst, this horse has no shot. But I'll let you try to talk me out of that thinking.
Yeah, all I'll say for him is that before the Preakness, if you're just judging him based on the Preakness, I think maybe it's a little unfair because before the Preakness, he had traveled from Japan to Dubai, back to Japan, then to the U.S., with all the quarantines in between. with all the, the travel, obviously, with the acclimating to his surroundings. And then also he kind of made a little bit of an early move, a mid move up the rail, and then just kind of stalled. And it was kind of a strange ride. I'm willing to forgive that Preakness. The question is, has he done anything to indicate to me that even if things are perfect for him, that he should win this race? And the answer is no. I think I wanted to give him a shot, and I think on pedigree he could be one of the horses, who's making a good move late. But I would cap his his potential at third or fourth.
Yeah, he did lose to a horse in Rebels Romance. I think a lot of people were potentially interested had Rebels Romance come and run, and that was the talk for a while. Obviously, Rebels Romance not in this race. Maybe that's his best case. Maybe he lost to a horse that people would have liked. I don't know. Let's move to the 6. That's Known Agenda. He comes in at 6-1. I don't know. He really had to overcome that post last time out, and I think a lot of people after his race at Gulfstream 2 back, a lot of people were pointing to the Belmont, not even pointing to the Derby, saying this horse is going to be bred. If you look at his pedigree, it's by Curlin, but then all that Great Britain, that's what GB is, all that European pedigree. So a lot of people are thinking that this is going to be his distance. Dan, are you along that thinking? Do you think this mile and a half suits him well?
I like Known Agenda a lot. I think, I can make a case for him being second choice in this race. I think the distance is perfect. I mean, the Curlin, aside from Tappet, is exactly, sort of the pedigree, the stallion you want to see on your Belmont Stake horse. So, in fact, I pulled numbers up yesterday. I don't have them handy, but basically going a mile and a half in graded stakes races on the dirt over the past several years, Curlins and Tappets are like, are 1-2, like I think it's something like, 20% and 18%. So, and then everyone else is like, 3% or 2%. Now, granted, I mean, not many mile and a half dirt races that are graded stakes in the U.S. So, not the biggest sample, but I think Known Agenda had every excuse in the world in the Derby. Everyone was trying to downplay the post, the new gate, and he'll have, bottom line is you got 20 horses converging on you when you're on the rail, unless you're the fastest horse in the race and can just get to the front, which he wasn't, and he isn't. You're going to have to at some point take back to avoid getting, just absolutely destroyed. And so I think Known Agenda here, ideal post, smaller field, potential pace setup that he needs, and that I think he'll enjoy if Rock Your World and Hot Rod Charlie are go honestly enough early. I think Known Agenda is a very logical play. For me, one of the few horses who I could see beating Essential Quality. So I would say win contender, and worst case scenario, finishes second or third.
Let's move on to the 7. That's Rock Your World. Didn't get the trip last time out. A lot of people would say he wasn't going to win anyway. That was my Kentucky Derby winner. So I'm sure as heck didn't like that beginning. But I'll let you start here. He looks like the horse that needs the lead to win. I think there's only one horse that kind of goes into that mold, and that's him. He's never won really from off the pace except his maiden special weight win, which that was on the turf. But then his one dirt win, he went gate to wire in the Santa Anita Derby. He comes into this one in the 7 post at 9-2.
I agree. Needs the lead. I think that there's a good chance he's going to get it. I think he clears. I think he'll have Hot Rod Charlie offering some token pressure. But I think he does need the lead. And I think, we'll find out. I'm kind of I'm on the fence with him. I had him in my mix. He wasn't my selection in the Derby, but I had him in my mix. And, I know he didn't get out of the gate well. Was that enough of an excuse for him to finish as poorly as he did? I don't know. I mean, again, Essential Quality didn't get out of the gate well either. Was wide the whole way around and was only beating the length. So if I'm comparing those two, certainly, I got to come away feeling like Essential Quality is the better horse. Plus, he's a multiple graded stakes winner, was 5-0 before the Derby. Rock Your World, granted, it was 3-0 before the Derby, but 2 of those were sort of lesser turf wins. And, the Santa Anita Derby was great, but, he was also loose on the lead there and, beat a field of, with the exception of Medina Spirit, a bunch of horses that to date don't seem all that notable. So I'm kind of inclined to play against Best case scenario, gets to the lead, slows things down. Would I be shocked if he held on? No. But do I expect him to hold on? No. I think he probably gets passed by at least one horse, maybe two. And I could see him completely flopping. I wouldn't be surprised either if he finished 7th or 8th.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick my head out there and say that I'm gonna throw that last race out. But I understand at this point I'm probably in the minority. A lot of people didn't like what they saw because you're right, Essential Quality didn't break well either. Let's move to the final horse, and that's the 8 Overtook. Todd Pletcher is probably looking around, when they're gonna break from the gate, probably giving Burbonic and Known Agenda a better chance than Overtook. But this is his 3rd horse. He's got, what is that, like a 37.5% chance to win this thing with 3 runners. How does Overtook at 20-1, breaking from the far outside, get the job done? What is his perfect race setup, if there is one, if he has one?
Bram Weinstein, who I host a show with every Monday over at ABR, was giving me crap, and also J.D. Fox was giving me crap for picking the other Pletcher. But I do like this horse quite a bit, actually. I'm not saying he's going to win, but I go back to pedigree in the Belmont Stakes. He's a Curlin. He's a horse who really hasn't been able to unwind his full late kick. And I think what he could do late is something that a lot of these horses are not going to be able to do. And I think that he's going to keep running late. He's going to keep coming late. Blinkers on, I'm not as excited about. He started his career with blinkers, went away from them, actually had run a lot better in recent starts, and now blinkers come back on. A little curious about why they're doing that here, but I'm not going to question Todd. But I do think second off the layoff, that Peter Pan Stakes, you could put a line through it. I mean, really, they went slow up front. He doesn't have any gate speed. And the 2 horses that were closest to the pace setter ended up finishing 1-2. And so, but we did see him make a nice little move. And he just, at the end of the day, going a mile and an eighth, Promise Keeper and Nova Rags had enough in the tank to finish 1-2. In this race, you're going to see some horses, once they're inside the 8th pole, really slow down. And I think you're not going to see that from Overtook. And so I think Overtook will surprise a lot of people. I would be shocked if he finished worse than 4th, if he finished in the back half of the field. And I would expect that he finishes no worse than 3rd or 4th.
That's a bold statement. I don't know what's more bold, that or the City Man. But
City Man, if domestic spending runs into any trip trouble, City Man's winning that race. And I just, it's on record here, so you could play it back.
Yeah, we could replay it next week, no matter what happens. So with all that being said, give us your pick, your ultimate winner, and kind of give us your why. Why is this horse going to win? Is it maybe trending upward? Maybe you question Essential Quality as a whole, or if you like Essential Quality, tell us why. Kind of give us your ultimate play here, or maybe how you're betting the race as well. If you're just going to do a straight win, or maybe you're going to try to get a little more exotic on us.
Yeah, sure. I think Essential Quality wins the race, and I think he wins it at the end of the day. He wins it pretty easily. I think he's going to be sitting just off of Hot Rod Charlie and Rock Your World. And then it's a matter of the scramble for second. Who's going to actually back up between Hot Rod Charlie and Rock Your World? I think they both will probably not be doing their best running late. I think Known Agenda will be making a late move. I think it's very likely we're going to see Essential Quality followed by Known Agenda. And then I like Overtook to make a little bit of a late rally and hit the board. So I'm probably going to be doing, I'll bet some kind of heavy exactas, Essential Quality over both Known Agenda and Overtook. And then I'll kind of do some smaller exactas with Overtook and Known Agenda over Essential Quality. I think it would take an act of God for Essential Quality not to finish at least second. I am completely confident in his ability to finish 1-2, and then the other 2 on pedigree, Known Agenda and Overtook, and also likelihood for improvement at this stage of the year, given how they're coming into this race, given how many races they've run. I think Overtook and Known Agenda are the most likely to round out your exotics. So that's the way I'll play it. I'll probably, the horse I'd feel bad about if I get burned and and he runs a big race, finishes, first, second, or third, would be Hot Rod Charlie. But I'm going to be, I'll probably do a little sentimental saver bet, just in case. But we'll see how it unfolds. I've got to give analysis based on what I see in replays and on the form.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you got to leave someone out, right? and I guess that would be Hot Rod Charlie. Unfortunately, I should say unfortunately for you, for everyone, it's a great story. And hopefully, if he wins, I don't think anyone would be upset if you know what the story is behind it. You would lose some money, but there's a greater cause at hand as well. But that's our full Belmont preview. I hope we got a lot of information for everyone to learn. We did break down some other races as well. Again, they have 8 Grade 1 races and another Grade 2. It's just going to be a fantastic field. I just checked the weather as Dan was going through Overtook. The weather's supposed to be absolutely beautiful on Saturday. Just cloudy in the morning, but it shouldn't be any rain. I saw maybe one scattered early in the morning. Should be very nice. Questionable from today and tomorrow, but so if you're going to be at the track all week, just keep that in mind. But that's going to do it for us today. Dan, I appreciate you coming on. I know I gave you a couple days notice, but I know you're extremely busy right now. Before we head out, kind of tell us what you're going to be doing with ABR, whether it's tomorrow, because I know there's a big card, or Saturday, what you guys are going to be doing, or if you're maybe even going to be at Belmont on Saturday, kind of just tell us your plans and what you guys have going on for the weekend.
Yeah. Are you going, by the way? Are you going to be there?
I am. I'll be with Aaron and Jared. I haven't been since 2015, the American Euro. Yeah, because I was in school, shagging rebounds for Jim Boeheim for a few years. And so I'll be there on Saturday. That's why I really, fingers crossed, I need the weather to be good for Saturday. Thursday and Friday is important, but Saturday, I'll be there. I'm excited, but I'll be tuning in. Hopefully can give some updates while I'm there as well. So. Awesome.
Yeah, let's connect out there. I'm planning on being out there Saturday. So let's definitely meet up. We'll talk offline.
Yeah, exactly.
So so we've got a couple of things going on, and it starts tonight. Joy Taylor, who is with Fox Sports, she does a radio show with Colin Cowherd that's streamed on Fox Sports, that's broadcast on Fox Sports.
Right now, 12 to 3 p.m. on Fox Sports, literally right now.
There you go. Okay, so Joy, she's awesome. And she's one of our, sort of racing ambassadors / kind of broader contributor team. And she's doing a live show tonight for us with Jonathan Kinchin. That starts at 5 p.m. Eastern. You can catch it on Joy's social media channels at Joy Taylor Talks. You could find it on Jonathan's channels at UT Big Hair. And you could find it on ABR at ABR Live on Twitter or ABR on Facebook. So check that out. 5 o'clock tonight. Belmont Stakes Preview Live. Really excited about that show. They did a great Derby preview show, which a lot of people tuned in for. So tune in tonight to catch them. And then tomorrow and Saturday, excited to say for people who follow ABR, Penelope Miller is back. Penelope had been out of action for a couple of months. She's back at Belmont. She's already been taking photos out at the track this morning at the in the barn. Getting all the great behind-the-scenes content. So I think if you follow ABR on social media, you'll see a lot of good stuff, both pre-Belmont Stakes and after Belmont Stakes. And we'll go live a few times on our social channels, and obviously post updates throughout the weekend on americasbestracing.net.
Yeah, no, a ton of content out there on the Racing Dudes front. Magic Mike show will do their late pick 4 for Saturday as well. I'm not going to confirm blinkers off because they still might be traveling. I'm not entirely sure what their plans are. I think their flight is at like 3 o'clock, Aaron said. So don't quote me. I think they're going to try to do it. But Aaron and I will be on tomorrow morning. We'll give our picks for all the stakes races. We're not going to do a full Belmont breakdown like we just did now because we'll actually be handicapping tomorrow's late pick 4 as well, and then all the stakes races. So we'll be covering a lot as well. But guys, please chime in either on my social media or Dan's or ABR or Racing Dudes. If you guys are going to be out there, I'd personally love to meet up with you guys and things like that and just kind of chat. And hopefully, again, the weather's great. It should be a really, really fun day. And it's the last leg of the Triple Crown, and then summer racing kind of kicks off soon, Saratoga and Del Mar and all that good stuff. So it's just really the beginning of the summer, as I like to say, and the end the spring excitement, as I like to say. But Dan, thank you for coming on. It was great to have you for, I guess, the last 79 minutes or so. We'll definitely link up when we're out there for sure. And again, guys, just give us your comments, thoughts, feedback. Let us know if you agree with some of our picks or if you don't. And nonetheless, we'll know if City Man ran a good race. Dan is going to be the first one to come on next week, and he's going to break down why City Man finished in the top 3 or why he didn't. Either way, we don't know. We'll have to find out on Saturday.
Don't miss out. Don't miss out on City Man. City Man's
running
a race.
You'll get a price. I don't know what's going to happen, but you're guaranteed to get a price. Sometimes that you could make some money there as well, even if he doesn't win. But that's going to do it for us today. I'll be back bright and early, 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. Again, just keep in mind, if you're playing Belmont today, the weather might be an issue towards the end of the card. They are starting at 3 o'clock today, not a normal 12:45 or 1 o'clock post, 3 o'clock there. But that's going to do it for us. We'll see you. I'll see you tomorrow. Dan, you'll see Dan for, I'm sure, the next few days or so all over Belmont. He'll be covering it, the ABR team, along with the Racing Dudes team. But that's going to do it for us. Everyone stay safe, stay healthy, and of course, wager responsibly. That's what we try to value the most. Everyone take care and enjoy the rest of your Thursday afternoon.